part of the assessment services team. I'm based in Madrid, and it is lovely to be here with you today to talk about B2 First and B2 First for schools. Okay, so before we start, a bit of housekeeping so everyone knows what to expect. You will see that your microphone and camera have been automatically turned off, okay, because there are so many of you. But I would love to hear your thoughts, and it would be great to share, to be able to share ideas with the chat box. Okay, so if you have any comments, if you have questions, maybe it is better to use the Q&A section. But if you have comments or ideas, please share them in the chat box. If you can select in the drop-down menu in the chat box, everyone, so everyone can benefit from your ideas and your thoughts, that would be great. Thank you very much for submitting some questions in the registration process. I have tried to include them in the session, but if you have further questions, please let us know in the Q&A. My colleagues, Aurélie, Emily, and David are here with me. They have joined me, and they will be helping with the Q&A and in the chat box. To make sure that we try to cover as much as possible. The session will be recorded, as you have probably seen, and that the recording had started, and the link will be shared in the follow-up email that we will send shortly. There will be a survey at the end because we would love to hear your feedback. So please stay until the end and give us your thoughts. Okay, so without further ado, because I think there is quite a lot to get through, we're going to start. So what are we going to talk about today? I'm going to try and give you a very brief overview of the B2 First and the B2 First for schools. I say brief because I know that most of you will be taking the exam shortly, so you are for sure pretty familiar with the exam already. I will try to share some top tips, some recommendations that may hopefully will help you in your preparation, in your learning, and might be of use on the exam day. And I will try to go through also some resources that may help you to prepare, to learn English, and to be ready for the exam. And we will finish with a Q&A. Okay, so we're going to start actually talking about the exam in general. And for this, I have a question that you submitted. When was the format of the exam last reviewed? This is something that you asked when you registered. Well, the exam, the B2 First, was last updated in 2015. And as a result of this update, as a result of this revision, we have it in its current state. Okay, so we have 4 papers. The compulsory task is in the writing paper is an essay. It used to be an email, now it is an essay. There are written prompts in the speaking part. In the past, there were pictures. And the exam is a bit shorter than it used to be. Okay, so these are some of the main changes that took place in 2015. Right, so let's get started. Let's focus on reading and use of English, which is the first paper that we are going to talk about. Right, so actually, I was going to ask you, there was a poll, but I think I have already given you the answer to this. How long do you have to complete the reading and use of English paper? Is it an hour? Is it an hour and 15 minutes? Is it an hour and 20 minutes? Okay, while you answer the poll, let me remind you, please, that here we are lucky enough to have participants from many different places in Europe and in the Americas as well. So please try and use English in the chat box. Okay, so we can benefit all from understanding each other and from sharing your ideas. Okay, so please use English in the chat box and use it to share any thoughts. Okay, so reading and use of English. How long do you have to complete it, this paper? Okay, I see some answers in the chat box, 1 hour and 20, 1 hour, 1 hour and 15. So a bit of debate in the chat box. Okay, there seems to be some agreement now that it's 1 hour and 15 minutes. Okay, so I think we can share now the results of the poll. Okay, and most of you, almost 70%, selected 1 hour and 15 minutes. Okay, that's great because that's the correct answer. Well done. You have 1 hour and 15 minutes to go through parts 1 to 7 in the reading and use of English. Okay, you can see here that there are 7 parts with different task types and different test focuses. You will see that there are QR codes throughout the session on the slides, and this is for you to access the useful resources that we would like to share with you. Okay, if you cannot capture all of them, please don't worry, because we will be sharing a handout with useful links in the follow-up email as well. Okay, so let's get started. Part 3. We are not going to cover all the parts for obvious reasons. We don't have enough time for this, but I've tried to select the parts that I think would be more interesting for you, maybe because you find them a bit more challenging, or you would benefit from some additional information about them. Okay, so what do we need to demonstrate in part 3? This is word formation. Okay, there is a focus on vocabulary. Okay, that's the first thing. And more precisely, we will be paying attention to word formation, prefixes, suffixes, compounds, but also we need to show our understanding of sentence structure. We need to decide if we need to use a verb, if it's a noun, an adjective. We also need to check our understanding, to show our understanding rather, okay, by using maybe negative prefixes, plural forms, and also we need to show that we can we have a good command of English with spelling, okay? So let's look at the approach to part 3. The first thing that I recommend is that you read the whole text and focus on meaning. Okay, you need to skim the text, okay, read the text, read it quickly and try to get a general idea of what the text is about. Then, once you have an idea, you need to concentrate on each of the gaps and read what comes before and what comes after the gap. It is a good idea to read the whole sentence and even the whole paragraph in case there are some hints that can give you an idea of what the correct answer is. And then once you have completed all the gaps, it is a good idea to read the whole text again quickly, to make sure that the text flows, that what you've written makes sense, and that it is coherent. Okay, so let's look at an example. The example I've taken from Test and Train. And let's have a look at the information that we have here. The benefits of playing video games, you can see that it is a longer text, but here I've just concentrated on the first paragraph, okay? Taking a screenshot of the first paragraph, and there is a light bulb at the beginning, okay? And it is just to remind you that you should read the whole text quickly to see what it is about, okay? So this is the idea. that I mentioned in on my previous slide. Okay, so before you start, it's important that you read the text quickly. Okay, then you can concentrate on the individual gaps. So here we've got the word vision, and then the correct answer is visual. You can see that there is a change to the stem, right? So how do we know that we need visual and not vision or any other word class? Well, because we've got abilities, we've got a noun, so it makes sense to have an adjective that is going to complement, that is going to modify the noun. Okay, then we've got research, and the correct answer is researchers, plural. How do we know that we need a plural form? Well, because we've got the verb, and the verb is in plural. Then we've got aware, and the correct answer is in negative, unaware. And how do we know this? In this case, it makes sense to go back and look at the whole sentence. We are introducing a contrast with but. So this is going to give you the key to think that this is negative. Okay, so this is all about part 3. Now moving on to part 4. What do we need to demonstrate in part 4? Keyword transformation. We need to show our flexibility and range in expressing meaning in different ways. And we also need to show our knowledge about our knowledge of grammar, vocabulary, and collocations. Okay, so there is a bit of everything, but there is this focus on grammar and vocab. And the key is really the transformation, the paraphrasing and the rephrasing. Okay, so what are the aspects that we should bear in mind when we are working on this part 4? We will be thinking about articles, verbs, fixed phrases, linkers, prepositions, and pronouns. Okay, so you can see a lot of grammar words that are going to help us in this part of the test. But let's look at an example. Okay, here we've got an example, and let's look at the recommendations. The first thing that maybe you should try is read the first sentence very carefully. Okay, so this leading sentence. The second sentence must mean exactly the same thing as the first sentence. So you must make sure that you have included all the information in the first sentence in the second sentence. And then check the content which has already been covered outside the gap. So in this case, we've got Paolo, okay, it is here. Often, we've got it here, unusual names, unusual and names, characters in his stories, characters in his stories. Okay, so the only thing that is left behind, the only thing that hasn't been included is thinks of. And we've got here the keyword, which is comes. Now, what do you think is the correct answer? Okay, there we go. Perfect. Well done. Comes up with. Fantastic. Excellent. Well done. There you go. This is the correct answer. Comes up with. And before moving on, if you were in an exam situation, I recommend that you ask yourself these questions. Have I changed the keyword? In this case, we haven't. Have I written between 2 and 5 words? In this case, we have. Okay, we have written 5 words. So if you follow these, if you ask yourself these questions, you've got like a way to check that what you've written could be correct, okay? You have more chances there. Right, and here we can see that Test and Train offers some feedback on our answers, okay? So it is giving us the correct answer, and it is also reminding us that in this part of the test, we can get up to 2 marks per sentence. Okay, so in this case, comes up, we would get 1 mark, and then we will get 1 mark for width. Okay, so you need to remember that, to take that into account, that in this part of the test, you can get up to 2 marks per sentence rather. Right, okay, moving on. Now we are going to start with the reading part of the paper, but we're going to start talking about it with 2 questions, okay? You asked me how to effectively manage the time for the reading and use of English parts, and how to address the reading part correctly, because at times it is true that multiple answers seem correct. Okay, so I'm going to bear these questions in mind in the next slides, and we are going to address the topic of the multiple answers that seem correct in the reading, but also in the listening parts. But I would like to ask you a question, okay, because I think it is connected with managing our time in the reading paper. What do good readers do? What do you think a good reader can do? Any ideas in the chat box, please? Read books, read multiple times, quickly absorb information, focus on keywords, scan the text, read fast and understand, read fast and get information, skim the text. Fantastic, thank you. Understand important parts. Okay. Fantastic. Okay, fantastic. Thank you for this. And yes, indeed, there is a lot about fast reading. Actually, we need to decide on the best sub-skill depending on the task. From B1 and especially from B2 upwards, we can see that we will need to decide on the best approach to our task, okay, to the task that we've got in hand. Sometimes we may need to skim the text, okay, read it quickly to get a general idea, to get the main idea, scan the text to read it quickly and to get specific information. In some other cases, we may need to read the text in more detail, okay, more carefully. So how can we decide? Well, it depends on our purpose. It depends on the task, okay? And in many cases, we get the feedback that you didn't have enough time to go through the texts in the reading paper. That's done on purpose. That's done because we need to test your ability to read quickly, okay? Your ability to decide on the best sub-skill to approach the task effectively. Then something else that good readers do is to be able to deal with unknown words. There will always be vocabulary you are not familiar with, but how should you deal with it? First, you need to decide if these unknown words are important to the main message or not. If they are, then you should try and work out their meaning based on context, based on your information about the language, okay? If it's before a noun, maybe it is an adjective, and so on. And then if they are not important to the main message, you need to learn to ignore them, okay? And not worry too much about them. Something else that you need to become familiar with and understand is referencing, okay? So pronouns, linking devices, all the words that are going to help us feel that the text is working as a whole, okay? It is a unit. And this is going to be key especially in some parts of the test. And then finally, you need to be able to recognize paraphrasing and identify synonyms. Okay, paraphrasing is present in all our exams in all the different parts because it is a key skill to in language. Okay, so we need to be able to recognize this, and as we will see later on. Right, so let's focus now on part 6. This is the gapped text. I'm sure you are familiar with it. And how should we approach this task? Well, first, read the text quickly, ignoring the gaps to get an idea of what it is about. Then read the first gapped paragraph carefully and look at the words before and after the gap. Okay, so once we have read the text quickly, let's zoom in, okay, and focus on the first paragraph. Then let's look at the options to see which one fits better. Look also for words that connect the option you think is the correct one with the paragraph. Okay, this is key because maybe there are other sentences that could match the paragraph in terms of meaning, but let's look at the words that are also going to help you decide what the best sentence is. Then go through the text and check that it makes sense, that it flows, that it is coherent, okay? Then when you are happy with it, then you can move on. Let's look at an example, again from Test and Train. You can see that, well, the text is much longer. Here we have selected a bit extract of it, okay? And then we've got the different options. Let's look at it in a bit more detail. And let's see if we can find the correct sentence for this gap. Okay, the correct sentence is E. How did we decide about that this is a correct option? Sorry, I got distracted because there is a question in the chat box about the previous slide. Don't worry, okay? I need to move on quickly because we have a limited amount of time, but you will be able to access the recording and you will be able to take your notes. Okay, so going back to the task, how did we decide? Well, first, because the sentence makes sense in the context of the paragraph, and also because we can see the connection here between the person referred to as he here and him in the sentence. Then we've got the pronoun it, okay, which here is referring to the unexpected. And then we've got critical factor, which is another way of saying affects us the most. Right, so we can see here very clearly the words that are connecting the sentence and the paragraph. Okay, there is a question in the chat box about contractions. I think if you're talking about the part 4, words that are contracted, okay, count as 2 words, except for cannot. Can't is only counts as 1 word. Okay, moving on. We are going to continue with a question coming from your questions, actually. During the exam, do we have extra time to fill the answer sheets? Okay, this is information that comes in the instructions. Okay, for the reading and use of English paper, you must complete the answer sheet within the time limits. Okay, so within the hour and 15 minutes. And we will talk about the other papers as we discuss them in the webinar. There was another question also about read and improve. This is a fantastic tool that is available online. You've got the QR code there for you in case you want to access it. And it is a tool that helps you to read. Okay, it gives you a variety of reading resources, okay, mainly news that you can select depending on your level. Thank you very much. Emily has just included the link in the chat box. And once you have selected the text you would like to read, you can see something like this. Okay, so you, as well as reading, you can also work on vocabulary. Okay, so if you hover over some words, you will see where they appear in the text. You can also have information about the word class, the words that go with that word, okay, the word that collocate with that word. You can also get a definition, the level this word is used, typically used at, and then you can also practice your writing because you can write a summary of the text and get feedback in terms of the quality of your writing and the relevance. Okay, so it is quite complete. I recommend that if you haven't tried it, you check it out because it is great practice. And you can also get an idea of the level the texts you are reading are is. So it is quite useful. So you don't get texts which are too easy, but also you don't get texts which are too difficult. It is free, yes. Okay, moving on to writing. And another question for you, I think there was in the poll, I think there was a poll for you here about the text types that you can find in B2 First Writing Part 2. What text types could you find in B2 First Writing Part 2? B2 First for schools and B2 First standard. So is it article, email, essay, letter, review, or story for B2 First for schools, or report, B2 First? Is it article, email, essay, letter, review? Or is it email, essay, letter, review, or story for B2 First for schools, or report for B2 First standard? The QR codes are usually for resources that I would like to share with you. Okay, and I think that on this last slide was for read and improve. Okay, so maybe we can give out the answer. Okay, so yes, you went for the correct answer. Almost 50% of you went for the first answer, which was the correct one. Excellent. Okay, so there we go. We've got an essay as compulsory task in part 1, and then we've got a variety of texts in part 2. Duration of the paper, 1 hour and 20 minutes. And for you taking the paper-based exam, you need to write in pen. Okay, and the QR code is taking you to our website, so where you can check the format of the exam if you have any questions. Okay, let's continue with another question from you. Do students have to read any literary works in preparation for to the exams B2 First and C1 Advanced? Okay, it is great practice. Okay, reading is always a very good idea in preparation for your exams, to learn, to enjoy, but only candidates at B2 First for schools will have the option of writing an answer about set text, okay, in the context of B2 First and C1 Advanced, okay? So B2 First for schools, candidates can choose question 5, which is on the set text. The set text for this year, for 2023, is The Great Gatsby. But you need to take into account that from 2024, from January 2024, we will be removing these parts, okay, this optional set text. If you want to have information about this set text and this question in particular, please scan this QR code at the bottom of the screen. Okay, you can see here a screenshot of paper, the writing paper part 2, where you can see that at that time there was another set text. Okay, but for B2 first standard, okay, there is no question 5. Okay, so how can we approach the task? How can we approach the tasks in the writing paper? Okay, there are 3 stages in the writing process: pre-writing, writing, and reviewing. And let's start with the pre-writing, the planning. Many of you will have the temptation of starting to write the moment you are given the green light, okay? But it is a good idea to try and spend some time, some minutes thinking about what you need to write, okay? Planning what you're going to write, thinking about who will read the text, who the target reader is, the reason why you are writing, the aspects, the task requirements that you need to take into account before starting to write. This is going to improve and make the writing process easier. Okay, then also think about the ideas that you would like to include, select them, organize them. And once you have done that, the other stages, as I said, will be easier. Then in the writing stage, you need to decide what your main ideas are, the supporting information that you're giving, examples, explanations. If you have developed your ideas well enough, you are including some ideas, some simple and some complex ideas. And finally, in the reviewing stage, you can check the language, the task requirements, again, check for repetition, and then any problems that you may notice. Okay, so this may look as something that requires a long time, but if you have been practicing this and you have been preparing for your exam, with these 3 stages in mind, it should be quite quick. Okay, and really it is time well spent in the pre-writing and the reviewing stage. Okay, so please use your time wisely and devote some time for these 2 stages. It is, I mean, if you had to submit an important piece of writing, if you had to send a very important email, wouldn't you read it once or twice or 3 times? I'm sure you would. So it is really good practice for real life as well. Okay, let's think about the task requirements, okay, in the planning stage, okay, in the pre-writing. There is quite a lot of information in this part of the test. You've got the first part in the red square with the word count, 140 to 190 words. We don't want you to be spending time counting words, okay? This is a recommendation. This is guideline based on our experience of what candidates, how many words candidates typically need to do the task well. Okay, but we don't want you to be counting words. So please take this as a guideline, as a recommendation. Then in the orange box, we will be giving you information about your target reader and the text type that you will need to write. Then in the purple box, we are giving you the topic, and then in the blue box, we will giving you ideas, okay? The ideas that you need to include plus your own idea. Okay, so how can we develop and organize our ideas? It is a key element at all levels, but especially at higher levels. Okay, when the organization and the development of ideas becomes more challenging. Okay, maybe due to the complexity of the level. Okay, so we need to maybe think about this structure. Present the main idea, that will be the topic sentence of your paragraph. Explain the idea and add further details or an example. Okay, this is a very simple way to organize your ideas in the essay. Okay, so if you have these, if you follow this structure in the different paragraphs, it should be, I mean, in terms of organization, it should work. Then ideas, and complex and simple ideas or straightforward ideas. This is something that is important in terms of communicative achievement. Okay, so at Band 3, you are expected to be able to use the conventions of the task and to communicate straightforward ideas. Okay, if you want to move towards solid B2, even C1, you need to try and use some complex ideas. But what is complex? What is simple? Here you can see an example of what we mean. Okay, complex ideas are abstract rather than straightforward, and they usually cover a wider subject area. So then it means that you need more sophisticated, more complex language to incorporate them to your piece of writing and to express them. Okay, so here you can see an example of what we mean by straightforward and complex at B2. This QR code is taking you to the guide for writing that is available online. It is a guide for teachers, but I'm sure you will benefit from looking at these examples in preparation for your exam. Then language, less common lexis, control, flexibility. What is that? What does this mean at this level, at B2? Again, here you can see an example of what we mean by this. Okay, real examples with specific examples of what we mean by control, flexibility, this less frequent vocabulary that you can use as a B2 learner. And another question from you, where can I find practice? Well, you can find practice first. You can get an idea of the type of vocabulary that you need to use using the English vocabulary profile. This tool is online and it is great because it will give you an idea of the level at which candidates or learners rather typically are able to use these words. You can see that the same word can be used at different levels, okay, depending on the context and depending on the use, okay, whether it is more common or less frequent. And then also on our website, you can have a selection of learning activities. But I would also like you to reflect about what knowing a word is. Okay, and doing it in the context of reading and listening. So when we come across a word, how can we decide if we know these words? Maybe when we are at very basic level, okay, A1, if we can recognize it, is enough. If we can know the equivalent in our mother tongue, it is enough. But as we go to higher levels, as we climb the language ladder, there are more aspects that we need to take into account. Do we know all its forms? Do we know how to build related words? This is something that we are testing in our reading and use of English paper. How is it used? When is it appropriate? How does it relate to other words, the collocations that we were talking about before? Can we spell it? Do we know how it is pronounced? Are there any grammar restrictions? So there are a lot of aspects to consider before deciding if we really know our words. And it is important that we bear this in mind. And when we are coming across new vocabulary, we're able to record all these different perspectives, okay? Because that's the way to really be able to improve our vocabulary at higher levels and then be able to show it. And how can we demonstrate it? Okay, rephrasing. We have talked about this before. Be ready to use different words, use synonyms, and above all, aim high, be ambitious. Okay, we want to see that you can really use different types of language, less common lexes, and we are aware that there will be errors, there will be slips, but as long as they don't impede communication, that they shouldn't be a problem. And then finally, reviewing. Okay, this QR code will take you to the to some questions, okay, some checklists for you to have in mind, okay, all the different aspects. So if you have been preparing with these questions in mind, then the day of the exam, everything will be a bit more automatic, a bit quicker. And if you want to have further practice with writing, please check out Write and Improve. You can select the tasks depending on your level. You can type in your answers and get instant feedback at word, phrase, and sentence level. And you can also get some feedback in terms of content. This is a closer look to it. And also you can get a CFR level just to know how you are doing. Okay, moving on to listening with a question. What challenges do you face when listening in English? What are the main difficulties? Giovanna, the recording of the webinar will be sent to you on the follow-up email. Okay, so wait and you will receive it. You should receive it shortly. Okay, let's see, accent, locations, identifying all the words, following the full audio. Okay. Daniel, I will try to answer your question about managing time, okay? I see that you really want an answer. Probably managing your time in the reading and use of English, you need to have a strategy and then decide how long you are going to spend on the different tasks, okay? And if you haven't finished by that time, probably it is the best thing to do is probably move on and continue with the test, okay? Because if you get stuck in a task, maybe it is better to forget about it for for some time and then go back to it. Then you can also decide if you want to start with the tasks that you feel more comfortable with, or so you feel a bit more confident for the rest. And then I think that the key really is to decide on the sub-skill that you need to use. You cannot expect to read every text carefully and in detail, okay? You need to decide on the best sub-skill to have the time to go through the whole paper and finish it in good time. Okay, so some of the challenges were mentioned: connected speech, complexity, accent for sure, intonation, and what we imply with our intonation for sure. These are problems, okay, that we may find when listening in English or in any foreign language. It is a bit more automatic in our mother tongue. This is an overview of the listening paper, 40 minutes. You have 5 minutes to transfer your answers. And you can see a wide range of focuses here, okay? Key aspects to bear in mind in multiple choice tasks. Distractors. What is a distractor? A distractor is when you have multiple choice questions are the options that are not correct, okay? So if you've got 3 options, one of them is the correct answer and the other 2 are the distractors. And then you need to bear in mind that what you hear is not what you read. And finally, cognitive load. What does this mean? We will talk about this later on. First, manage your time. Use the preparation time well to read the instructions, to think about the topic. And then you're going to listen twice. So listen and choose the first time, then listen and check the second time. What you hear is not what you read. Paraphrasing, here again, key. Don't focus on the words, think about the meaning, okay? Don't just focus on the words because maybe you will get distracted by that. And how can you prepare? Using the audio script. Let's look at this. This is a task, okay? This is a question and this is the audio script. On Test and Train, you will not see it like that. You will be able to access the audio script, but not in the task. Okay. So here we've got the 3 options and we've got the first distractor. Doubtful it will be popular. I've heard lots of people want to get involved. So clearly this is not the correct option. Unsure why it is needed. It will be great to have it here. Not many small towns have it. It will be good to get more kids around it and around here interested in chess. Not the correct answer. So another distractor. Reluctant to join it. I'm still in the one that I started in the city. I'm not sure. So this is the correct answer. Sentence completion. What should we bear in mind? Answers appear in the same order. We mustn't change the words. Here, we don't have to paraphrase, okay? We are not asked to do so. We have to complete the sentences with either a word or a short phrase, and we need to keep track of the text and the recording. This has to do with the cognitive load, okay? That what is going on in our minds, okay, while we are doing the listening. And here we've got an example, okay, with puffings. I'm sure you've seen this task before. So in the gap, we see that we are asked for a word that is used to describe. So we need an adjective. And we have some specifications, an adjective to describe the puffing's appearance out of the water. We have different adjectives here, distractors. How can we decide? Okay, there is only one that is used to describe their appearance on dry land, that is out of the water. So we see that what we hear is not what we read. Resources to develop listening skills. Learning resources, Test and Train with recommendations, audio script, lots of practice. Exam Lift. It is a mobile app. You can practice all 4 skills, same as with Test and Train, virtually anywhere, available on our website with lesson plans, audio scripts, but also, thank you, Silvana. It is great to hear this feedback about Exam Lift. And then we also have some authentic material, BBC News, CNN, the Australian ABC News, okay, for different accents, different topics. So great resources to use, I think, in combination. Right, moving on to speaking, the last section, 4 parts, 2 candidates, 2 examiners. And I think there was a poll for you in the speaking exam. My partner's performance will influence the mark I get. There are 2 examiners in the room, but only one of them will speak to me and manage the test. The more I speak, the better, even if I don't let my partner speak. So what do you think is the correct answer? If we can get the answers, team, let's see what they said. Okay, there are 2 examiners in the room. Perfect. Okay. Examiners are trained to give everyone a fair chance. Okay, so they will assess you independently. Okay, and in the speaking, you are asked to interact with your partner for a reason, because we want to see how you interact. This is a soft skill, so please do so. Okay. Right, so key aspects to bear in mind. Communicate effectively at B2. This involves all these bubbles, okay? Grammar and vocab, discourse management, pronunciation, and interactive communication, okay? So all these aspects play a role in your ability to communicate effectively at B2. Also, be ready to manage your discourse, where these bubbles in pink become maybe more prominent, and also your interaction with orange bubbles here. You will have use all the opportunities that you're given to speak in the test and extend your responses whenever possible. Okay, how can you do it? Maybe giving a more general view at the beginning and then express your point of view. For sure, not saying yes, no, right or wrong, but trying to develop your ideas, adding a reason, adding an example, referring to your partner's ideas if appropriate. And listen to your partner. Listen and react, okay? When you have the opportunity. And then how to approach part 3, the 2-way conversation. Interact with your partner. You are talking to your partner, so face each other. Make eye contact. Discuss the ideas together and not in turns, okay? Don't just like go on a monologue. No, it's turn taking. Respond to what your partner said, as you said. Finish by prompting what your partner to take over with what do you think, okay, or any other structures, okay? So be ready to engage in a conversation. You need to expect to use functional language to express agreement, disagreement in a polite way, asking for opinion, negotiating for an outcome, using adjectives. And then what happens if you are short by 1 or 2 seconds? This was a question that I got asked. Well, first of all, remember that our marking is positive. We are going to reward you for what you can do, okay? Try to speak for as long as you can. Try to show the English you know, variety, complexity, accuracy, and maybe one of the most important things for this not to happen is to practice, okay? And make sure you know how long 1 minute or 2 minutes feel, okay? So with enough preparation, you should be ready to speak until the examiner says thank you. Okay, we are going to finish just with a lot of resources here. I can't recommend this resource enough, okay? Speaking examiners talking about candidates. Please check it if you haven't watched it. Then the guides that I have been talking about throughout the session, you know that we've got the speaking videos, the information for candidates, for the exam day, post-exam day. Test and train, okay, I've been showing you some screenshots of this great tool, okay? It is really a great resource for you to complement your preparation, okay, in the weeks leading up to the exam. Okay, and then you had a question about special requirements. If you have special requirements, please check out our website and above all, communicate it to your exam center so they can give you the best recommendations in your situation. One more question, one more question from you. Time to spend preparing yourself for the test. You can see that different authors have different perspectives, hours of study, instruction hours, teaching hours, okay? So the key is that it depends on your level, depends on the time that you've got available, how intensively you can engage with the teaching hours, for example, and so on. Okay, so it depends. Here you can see up to 500 hours, 304 hours of study, more than 120 teaching hours from B1 to B2. Okay, so it just depends, but this is, you can get an idea. And one more question, can we, how much time do we have for the exam? 3 hours and 29 minutes. Are we allowed to go to the bathroom? There will be breaks. And can you drink water during the exam? Yes, in the